Hey guys, Epsi here with a new series I'm going to be calling More Challenging Strikes. Now, in this series, I'm going to be looking at each strike and then how I want them changed. And this is not just going to be like, oh, let's add some more things here. I want a complete overhaul and adding some more mechanics into them to make them more interesting and fun to play. And more importantly, make them more challenging, because I feel right now that they're just a huge chore and they're really boring, and it's just like, oh, I'm just grinding through this to try to get maybe something good at the end where I just get blue engrams. So I wanted to be something fun as opposed to that grind that we normally feel in this game. Sorry I couldn't get this uploaded earlier, but I've been busy with doing like job stuff and things, so until I can actually make this YouTube thing a career, I have to split it up between actually making money and making the content that I like. But in today's video, we're going to be looking at the Will of Crota strike because I think it has a lot of potential, and it's one of my favorite strikes now, but it still holds some of the same problems that are present within the other strikes. So let's just get right into this. The first encounter in the strike is a horde mode. You need to go into a room and wait until a bunch of enemies die down or you kill them before you can actually progress. Now the difficulty here is that we have not seen many game mechanics from the Fallen, so we're either going to have to look at other game mechanics that are already present in the game or make some up. Now what we want to do here is to make it more difficult or more challenging to unlock that door. As well, most players just hide in that small opening room, using it as a safe room as the enemies normally back off as soon as they enter. We need to avoid this. More challenge, please. The change I propose is as follows. As the players enter the room, Fallen will begin to move in from various doorways, and the doors from which the players arrived will slam shut, blocking them from within the room. So this Fallen will not spawn, and the door will not shut until all the players have entered the room, to make sure that they're not separated. At this time, the only exit will be blocked off by a Fallen security grid. To this, I'm going to introduce a new game mechanic, mini-game thing I call signal boosting. All around the room are various machines and computers through which the Fallen are bouncing their signals. Buried in these signals are the codes to break down the security grid. To do this, a holographic indicator will appear on a random machine in the room. The players must find and interact with that indicator. After doing this, a new indicator will appear somewhere else in the room, about 10 seconds or so later. The new indicator will only remain active for a short period after that, so you need to find it as quickly as possible. If the players fail to activate it, the signal will reset and the players will have to start this entire process over. If the players manage to signal boost at least 5 times, the players will hit a checkpoint. All the while, the Fallen will be constantly spawning in small waves, deterring the players from actually getting to the signal, making it a bit of a challenge to fight through them to the next objective marker. However, after completing this process once, they will reach a checkpoint to which their progress will be saved, and the hive will begin spawning in and attacking everything indiscriminately. Players must boost the signal again, so another 5 more times before the security grid is broken down. Once the grid is taken down, the Fallen will retreat, and the hive will immediately turn their attention to the players, who are now able to advance to the next encounter. The hive will despawn shortly thereafter, but will chase you up the steps, so please run quickly. This brings us to encounter number 2, which is more horde mode, kind of. I guess this one does it a bit better because it's a lot of enemies and you'd be quickly overwhelmed if you tried to skip it, and there's also a door that stops you from getting past it. So, it still has problems, and again, it can be better than this. Why do we have all these stages of horde mode? So the change here is subtle. The players will be assaulted by sniper vandals as normal as they exit the room. And then they will begin to pick them off slowly. However, the Fallen will act more aggressively here. The melee knights will rush into the room that the players are in. As well, the captains with shrapnel rifles will be supporting them in the back. A minute or so after the players are fighting the Fallen, the hive will begin to spawn from portals behind the players within the room, forcing the players out of the terrestrial complex and into the courtyard. At this point, a Fallen skiff will jump in with the arrival of the King Baron. Until the King Baron is killed, the skiffs will jump in, more skiffs will jump in occasionally and reinforce his guard. The hive will force you out and forward while the Fallen will slow your advance. You will then reach the doors into the terrestrial complex offices, where you will be met by another locked door, to which your ghost can probe to unlock. However, the probe can be disrupted. Think of the salvage game mode in the Crucible. The probe will only take about a minute to complete, but it is still a treacherous process for the players if they haven't cleared the ads first. This, like the Undying Mind, is to slow the player's progress and prevent them from skipping the event entirely before they are overwhelmed in their attempts to escape. While the door is being open, any fallen that remain will aggro on the players immediately and act aggressively to stop their advance, so you can't just sit in that room and expect nobody to come and bother you. As soon as the door is open, the players are allowed to advance into the offices and into the final encounter. So this is technically the second to last encounter, which is in the Jovian complex, where you first meet Omnigul, and the problem I have here is, well, this area is one of the other good parts of the strike. You fight through enemies to the boss stage, and if you try to skip that, you'll be overwhelmed by mobs, and I think that's really cool. Save that you also encounter Omnigul, and that seems to have no effect on her later. You can deal damage to her, but when you encounter her like 10 seconds later or just up that hill, that little hill area, she's at full health again, and once again when you fight her in the actual boss stage, she has suffered no damage that you've done. And I ask, why not? Why isn't that just like a mechanic? So the proposed change here is a small one. When you first encounter Omnigul, any damage that is dealt to Omnigul's health will carry over to her final encounter. Currently, her final encounter is a huge chunk of time. You have to commit a large amount of time in order to beat her because she's so damn tanky. So this change shouldn't affect her final fight all that much. It just means you won't have to spend as much time in this area, and the strike will go a lot smoother and will probably be more fun in the long run. That said, there needs to be a limit to how much damage you can actually do to her before she automatically teleports away, because you don't want her to die before she has a proper chance to kick your ass. Which brings us to the final encounter, and the problem I have here is, as I stated before, which is that she has too much health, she's too bullet spongy, and then we also have that safe room that everyone uses now. They don't even play the strikes, even outside of Nightfall, they're just sitting in that room, and I'd like to see that changed. Now, I don't have quite the same problem as I do here as I did the Undying Mind, but it just feels like they didn't try hard enough. Omnigul has way too much health, and it's to the point where halfway through the fight, you're still wondering what you're still doing here. Like, can we seriously still be fighting this lady? Like, seriously? Even more frustrating is in Nightfall, when you just sunk hours into these fights, and you finally get her low, and then she summons something, or a lucky boomer shot, kills your entire party in one shot, and you have to spend all of those hours again grinding through the same enemies and the same crap that you just did. It's not fun. Like, I wouldn't mind it as much if the strikes were fun, but right now they're just a grind fest. So the proposed change here is upon entering the room, leaving the safe zone, so make sure your entire team has to enter the room where Omnigul is before anything happens. The doors will slam shut. Omnigul will appear in the center of the room screaming as ads pour in from all doorways, bearing down on the players. Now, for this, they'd have to be toned down a bit, especially in Nightfall, because now that they don't have that fun little safe room, they'll be quickly overwhelmed in possibly just like 2 seconds flat. That said, the fight will remain about the same, so whenever you reduce her health by 1/4, she'll summon some major wizards and some more ads, or some tougher ads at least, whereas smaller ads like the Thralls will be spawning in constantly. These wizards, as well as Omnigul at this point, will begin summoning visages randomly around the room. This acts as a soft enrage. If you do not kill Omnigul fast enough, the room will quickly be filled with these visages, rendering any movement fatal, overwhelming the players. As well, if the players attempt to get higher ground to avoid these visages by standing on top of pillars or computers, etc., that are slewed around the entire room, the air around them will be poisoned, much like in the Fist of Crota mission. Upon Omnigul's death, all the hive will despawn, the visages will all dissipate, and the players have won. So, when I first did this strike, I didn't know that the safe room existed, and I just ran in there with all of my friends, and we were just hopping from cover to cover, blasting away enemies, and constantly just on our toes, and it was super intense, and really a lot of fun bringing Omnigul's health down, and finally defeating her, and I actually felt like I accomplished something. But now that I go through it again, and know that the safe room's there, and I know how to beat it without getting damaged, and I know the spots where mobs barely spawn and don't really shoot at me, it's become boring and monotonous again. So, these changes are meant to bring back that intensity that I have and that really treacherous nature where I had to really figure out where I wanted to place myself if I didn't want to get overwhelmed. So, what do you guys think? Do you think these changes are a good idea? Do you think they're a bit OP? Or do you think it's not enough? Please leave your comments down below. I've been Epsy, and I will see you next time.